and welcome to my channel. My name is Win, and just before we start things, I do just want to explain something. If you are a regular viewer of my content, first of all, thank you so much. And second of all, if you didn't watch the short that I believe I posted yesterday, I had to spend effectively 2 weeks off because I missed the upload. Was it 2 weeks? I don't know. The point is, I've had some time off because I had quite an exhausting weekend last weekend, and then I had stress-induced tension headaches. Because I had some uni stuff come through and made me quite anxious, and I had those for about a week. And it's a shame because this is one of the things that I really do love doing and it keeps me sane. But obviously I can't concentrate properly, nor can I really do many things on a screen when my headaches are bad. I just go through periods of time where I get quite headachy. Unfortunately, my stress tends to manifest in quite a physical way, but for the foreseeable future, I am back. This top is new, and I have since realised it's quite rustly. It has what were described as kind of like Morticia Addams sleeves. I've never seen the Addams Family, but I'm sure that I will do one day. Okay. Today we are continuing with my Cushing and the House That Dripped Blood series, where I look at the portmanteaus that he was involved with from Amicus. Today, assuming I got them the right way around, I think I did, we're going to be looking at the first of two portmanteaus that will appear in this video series from 1972. Tales from the Crypt. The one after that, I believe, is Asylum, so we will be doing that one not next week because that is the slot for a non-Cushing video, but the week after. Tales from the Crypt, 1972. I have it available in this, sorry about the reflection, DVD like 2-pack. I think you can also get this on Blu-ray. It's apparently from the Amicus Collections double feature. It is released by Final Cut Entertainment. It's quite a swanky design, honestly. I really like this one. I believe it's my copy of Jekyll and Hyde, the two original black and white ones with Frederick March and Spencer Tracy. With my copy of that, it's like a two-sided disc, so almost like an A and a B side kind of situation, but this is two separate discs. So we have this infamous skeleton motorbike rider man from Tales from the Crypt, and then Vault of Horror, which I'm not going to be talking about in this series, but my plan is eventually to do a selection of non-Amicus / non-Cushing portmanteaus, because Vault of Horror, whilst it has an amazing cast, I mean they all do, it is not a Cushing, so I can't really call it Cushing and the House That Dripped Blood because he was not involved in that one. But yes, this is a brilliant release, like cut of the films indeed, and there's a brilliant kind of behind the scenes feature with various film historians like Jonathan Rigby, who my dad and I love, also Reece Shearsmith, one of the League of Gentlemen, is involved in said little feature because he and a number of the other of that number love Amicus, whereas Mark Gatiss is more of a Hammer fan. I believe I've mentioned before that there was a documentary series that Mark Gatiss was involved in, I think it's called A History of Horror, with the BBC, and I will link the first of the episodes down below. So that is brilliant. I don't know if the others, so Jeremy Dyson, Reece Shearsmith and Steve Pemberton, I don't know if they've done anything similar, kind of documentary style-y with Amicus. I'm not sure. Obviously their biggest homage to Amicus would be their anthology series Inside Number 9. And then of course Mark Gatiss did Crooked House, and that's not the Agatha Christie, but instead the little anthology series that he also did for the BBC. I believe, I have a sneaking suspicion that Stephen Moffat was involved in that, because of course they are very firm friends, and they have done Sherlock and recently Dracula last year, I believe. So, Tales from the Crypt. After Dr. Terror, I think I have probably seen Tales from the Crypt the most. I mean, it's possible that I've even seen that more than Dr. Terror. I'm not entirely sure. When I have friends staying with me, or I'm staying with them, and they give me permission to show them a Cushing, I almost always show them Dr. Terror, because I feel it is effectively the first classic horror that I saw. And I feel like, well, the portmanteaus feel more modern because they are set during the times that they were released. But I think when I went through that phase of showing like at least 4 different people Dr. Terror, at that time I hadn't seen all of the other portmanteaus. This one, after Dr. Terror, I would say that, sorry, my feet are making strange noises on the floor. After Dr. Terror, Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror, as this kind of double DVD pack, they are the ones that are easiest to get hold of. And I would assume that if that's not already immediately obvious from the fact that the other 3 that I have are all transfer copies. So train of thought gone. But yes, this is, I think I bought this in HMV. I can't remember. I don't think it was very much, honestly, surprisingly. But yeah. I know, sorry, I kind of forgot what I was talking about. Ugh. Right, I don't know whether, no, we don't have a list of the, like, names of the segments. I'm afraid just for the sake of being able to get this video done and fingers crossed out on the Sunday, which is the day that I'm filming this, I am not going to name the segments. I can't just Google it as I'm filming because I film on my phone. And yeah, I'm quite, today has been a weird day for me, so apologies for that. But if you go on IMDb, I never know whether it's BD or DB. If you go on IMDb, DB, I think it might be DB, Wikipedia, I believe both websites list the kind of the names of the segments. Can I remember the order? Now there is a question. Okay, so the first of these, I do remember, is the one with Joan Collins, who you can see on the front of the cover. So, I believe I mentioned for like my Cushing birthday special, on the 26th of May, I believe I mentioned that Joan Collins, like Cushing, was born in May, and in fact the 2 of us share a birthday, so we're both May the 23rd. Joan Collins in this plays a murderous wife who has her eyes on her husband's life insurance. It's Christmas Eve, she keeps trying to get her child into bed, played by Chloe Franks, who is also a member of the cast of The Uncanny, which is a late 70s film. I believe it's late 70s that Cushing starred in with Maitland. And we witness Joan Collins trying to clear up the mess that has resulted after she murders her husband with, I think it's a poker. People point out the historians, actors, etc. involved in the little documentary, special featurette, whatever. It's not really a documentary. It feels like a documentary. I've seen similar things. That the blood in this particular story is quite an odd colour. Like it's very Kensington gore, which we had at this time for quite a long time. Didn't word that very well, but I was watching the second Hellraiser yesterday, and that is still effectively Kensington gore era. It's a very kind of poster painty kind of blood, but in Tales from the Crypt there is just something off about the colour. But she does her best to kind of stage things to look like it was suicide. And at the same time, it just so happens that a madman has escaped from a nearby asylum dressed as Santa Claus, and of course they are warning people to be on the lookout for that. He, of course, ends up at her house, heralded by the ominous tinkling of his little bell as he comes in through the gate. She does manage to keep things locked up successfully, it would seem, but her daughter lets Santa Claus in. So that is how she meets her fate. I'm realising as I'm doing this, I don't always know whether I'm going to spoil things when I've done these, I'm afraid. But yeah, I realise now this one might be a bit more spoilery, dependent on whether or not I can remember all of the stories. I will remember... Does it say how many? Yeah, 5. Okay, there are 5 stories. I will remember the content, the basic content of the stories, but apologies if I get the apologies if I get the order a little bit confused. So we have Joan Collins. Something that is interesting about that story, when the 5 characters who appear in these little segments, when we first see them, they are going round a tour of a large cave, and of course they get separated from the main group. Joan Collins is seen wearing a strange brooch, abstract kitsch 70s brooch that seems well at home within her interestingly decorated house. And this brooch is actually given to her for Christmas from her late husband. She opens this present early, and so she is seen wearing that brooch supposedly before that's happened, but like Dr. Terror and indeed the other portmanteaus, it's not entirely clear whether the characters are in kind of like a limbo state, or they're fully in hell, or for because of what they did, they're being forced to replay again and again their stories. And that kind of track is one that is followed in the film that came after Asylum, which is the next film I'll be talking about in this series. Vault of Horror suggests that the characters are having to replay their fates, or replay the incidents that led up to their fate again and again and again. The second story, I think, is the one with Ian Hendry, who, off the top of my head, I remember starred in The Theatre of Blood, which is a Vincent Price film I have. It's amazing. And Ian Hendry is having an affair. He is the Maitland in this story. I know that sounds odd from the offset, but for those of you that don't know, Milton Subotsky's favourite surname was Maitland. I remember that Jonathan Robson, the film historian that I mentioned earlier, his two examples that he mentions, that he discusses in a little feature up for the skull, are the skull, where you have Christopher Maitland, which is Cushing's character, and then also in the Uncanny, which Milton Subotsky, I believe, wrote the screenplay for, there is a social worker called Miss Maitland, and Ian Hendry's character is also a Maitland. It transpires that he is having an affair and has decided to leave his wife and kids, and watching that initial scene is actually quite upsetting, because obviously the children don't know that when he says he's going to go and say goodnight to the kids, he actually means he's going to say goodbye to them, and it's quite upsetting. He goes to see, in her old house that she is gradually clearing out with the aid of removal men, he goes to see his much younger lover, and they travel to the new location hotel, wherever it is they're staying, and at one point, whilst he's sitting in the passenger seat, Ian Hendry's character suddenly starts moaning in his sleep because he's having an awful nightmare. Later on, he grabs the steering wheel off his lover, Susan, because she nearly crashes into something. But then, unfortunately, it all spirals out of control and the two of them are involved in a car accident. When Maitland, Ian Hendry's character, comes to, the car is on fire, he can't find Susan, everything looks odd and deserted, and everything is now told from his perspective. So we see via the camera everything that he is seeing. He tries to hitchhike, but those that see him drive off straight away because there's something off about him or his request. He manages to walk his way back to his old house with his wife and kids, and this woman screams when she answers the door. He then sees that the name in this kind of block of large apartments has been changed from Maitland to something else, and she, inside, his wife or ex-wife, is being comforted by another man. He then goes back to the old house of his lover, Susan, and it transpires that in a car accident 2 years ago, she unfortunately lost her eyesight, and her boyfriend, Carl, I believe he's called, which is quite like a Hammer move to play, honestly, because a lot of side characters and kind of sidekick sort of characters are named Carl or Paul, because they're seemingly quite generic German names, according to Hammer logic anyway. Oh, and of course Hans is another one. But this guy, Carl, apparently died in a car accident 2 years ago. And that is when Carl, as I believe his name is, looks down at reflective mirror kind of material table that this woman has in her house and sees that he has become this weird, grey, charred zombie. Freakish. I really, really like this one. I mean, the first story is rather chilling, but also a little bit ridiculous. This one, I think, is done quite seriously. This film is, of course, based on stories from the Tales from the Crypt comics. Is it EG or EC comics, I believe? And the idea is that most of these stories end with quite a devilish, darkly comedic twist. I wouldn't call this one, this is kind of, I think of all of them, one of the most serious. Like, it doesn't, there isn't a joking element. And the way it actually ends is that all of this has been a nightmare. the nightmare that he has whilst he's in the back of the car, and he is being forced to loop this nightmare over and over and over again. So that's fun. Okay, so we have had 2 stories. Story 3, I don't know whether this is story 3 or story... No, I think story 3 is the one with... It's possible I've got these 2, like, the wrong way around, and I do apologise if I have. The next story I'm going to talk about anyway is the Cushing one, and it is about an old man, harmless old man, called Arthur Grimsdyke, who lives in this tiny little house opposite a massive mansion that is inhabited by a father and son. The father is quite weak and seems to just go along with what his son wants to do, which is to try and get rid of Grimsdyke so that they can sell, renovate, whatever, his house. And he is involved in a series of really horrible schemes, including suggesting to the neighbours that their children are in fact visiting a man with less than appropriate intentions, because he ordinarily has children visit him on his birthday each year. He finds old toys either in the dump or possibly in charity shops and fixes them up, makes sure everything is clean, and he gives them to these kids. But the parents, after hearing these rumours, decide that it isn't really safe for that to happen anymore, and he also ruins Grimsdyke's neighbour's rose garden, so that the neighbour calls on the authorities to remove his dogs because he believes that they must have destroyed the roses. Although Jamie, one little dog, manages to escape this culling. And I believe the last thing that happens, and this one is the most awful, on Valentine's Day, the young man, and I don't know if he's ever given a name, sends a pile of Valentine's cards containing poisonous poetry implying that nobody likes Grimsdyke, that he should effectively commit suicide. And unfortunately he does. Before this happens, we see him trying to communicate with his late wife, and she tells him that somebody is in danger, and the lovely man that he is, he assumes that it must be the children, not him. I believe the photo actually featured on the desk of Grimsdyke is his wife, Helen. And anybody that knows about, I've mentioned this before, anybody that knows about Cushing's story, Cushing's history, he never quite got over, not that you get over somebody's death as such, but he never quite came to terms with the death of his wife, Helen. And it is quite upsetting because he looks at this photo and he says, "We've always got each other, haven't we, my dear?" And that is just heartbreaking, knowing that a year earlier Cushing had lost his wife, or at least I don't know how many months, a year, whatever there was between the production and the release of Tales from the Crypt, but he lost his wife in 1971 and this film was released in 1972. So Grimsdyke unfortunately commits suicide. Nobody has heard from him for several days, so this the awful son who has been involved in these pranks and his dad go across the road to go and check if he's okay. They're shocked to see how clean everything is, apparently, and they find Jamie, who's barking at his owner. Then we have a year after this awful incident, the son receives a Valentine's card, I believe. Does he? No, he doesn't. Sorry. I can't remember whether he does. I'm so sorry. Possibly. He definitely has a collection of, like, Valentine's cards that he didn't send to Grimsdyke in his drawer. He's quite scared when his dad reminds him that it has been a year since Grimsdyke. And during the night, we see Grimsdyke rise from his grave. I think you can see it there. It's probably one of the most famous makeups that Cushing ever wore. It's brilliant. It's featured on like a number of mainstream like zombie film related videos on YouTube, which really does make me smile. So he comes up from his grave because, as we know from his communication with his wife, he was involved in all of that occultish goodness, badness. And he comes back to seek his revenge. And he leaves a poem, something along the lines of, you were twisted and cruel from the start, now you really have no. And then the dad opens it and it's the son's beating heart. Next we have, I don't think I need to talk about this one as much, but there is a version of The Monkey's Paw starring Richard Green, about a rich businessman who basically goes bankrupt, and when they wish for money he is killed, and his wife gets the insurance money. On the way to his death, he is stalked by this skeleton motorbike rider that is on the disc that I showed you, and this is a really interesting kind of almost mythological inclusion, I would say. But yeah, everything all goes a bit wrong. She wishes for him to be immortal, but he's been embalmed, so he's in a lot of pain. She takes an axe to him, and then he's immortal, but there are bits of body floating around. It's just lovely. It's lovely. It really is. It's not lovely. I need to remember. Oh yes, Yeah, 5 strangers. I can't remember the other stories. I know of it's not the one with Terry Thomas. Have I done 4 stories yet? Joan Collins, Ian Hendry, Peter Cushing, and okay, sorry, just one more story. I get confused between this one and Vault of Horror. The last story is with, I don't know the name of the actor, I'm so sorry, but an ex-army geezer is employed to become the superintendent of a home for the blind. He wastes all the money that is supposed to go to the residents on lavish food and paintings and the upkeep of his dog, while the residents, some of them unfortunately are literally freezing to death and they don't have enough food, they don't have enough blankets. It's really awful. The leader of the group is played by Niall McGuinness. No, it isn't. It's Patrick. Is he listed? Patrick McGee, that's it. Sorry. I believe he was in The Skull, a couple of other things. He's also in Asylum, which is the next one that we're going to be talking about in this series. I don't know why I get him confused between Niall McGuinness. So yes, Patrick McGee playing the leader of the group, and they decide they're going to get their revenge. They construct a series of tunnels, made using wooden planks, barbed wire, razor blades, etc. after locking away the dog, Shane, and the superintendent. And what they do is they, first of all, they lure the dog into this, like, prison, effectively, using bacon that they save from breakfast. I mean, it's a wonder that they're still getting proper meat, honestly. Sorry, I haven't taken my antihistamine, but it's like, what, 6, 7 o'clock now, so there isn't a lot of point. And eventually, when they let the dog out, he is of course starving. The superintendent has to try and make his way across these walls constructed by the men, the residents, like with razor blades sticking out, and he tries to make his way back when he sees that the dog is being released, but then of course they turn off the lights and the dog gets his dinner. So that one is quite a grim one to end on. I mean, it's interesting, and my mum pointed this out, and something that I hadn't really picked up on is that the blind men do move in quite an odd way, almost like they're zombies, which, I don't know, I feel quite bad that I didn't pick up on that initially, but I was aware, obviously, that it's an interesting portrayal of the blind, I think, but it does show that they are capable of, you know, fulfilling their revenge plans if they really want to. But of course I am not trying to generalise about blind people, anybody with a disability. I'm somebody with an invisible disability myself, so you know, it's not fair. But yeah, I don't think it's a sort of thing that you could really do now, unless you tweaked it greatly. But yes, I'm not really sure. But that one is quite, just thinking about it makes me feel a little bit spooked. That one is a very good one to end on. We get a disturbing one to begin with, and then an equally chilling one, but one that has less of a sort of a humorous spark to it. Tales from the Crypt, as I said at the beginning, this is one of the ones that I have seen the most out of all of the portmanteaus, including Vault of Horror. But yeah, this one would probably be pretty high up on my list. I would probably put it, it's difficult to do like an exact numbered list, but I'd probably put this one above Torture Garden, but below Dr. Terror, and also below The House that Dripped Blood, because as I believe I said a couple of weeks ago, The House that Dripped Blood is my favourite. So the Cushing role, to bring this back to Cushing, is particularly difficult to watch because of Cushing's own personal circumstances at the time, but also, you know, his just real command of emotions. So this one, I think, it's definitely uncomfortable to watch in places, but it is a very good one all the same. I'm pretty sure if my dad were here, he would also rate this one pretty highly on the list. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this one, and if you have any thoughts, feelings prior to my next video in this series on Asylum, also from 1972. You have now a little bit of time to watch, a couple of weeks to watch Asylum if you haven't already, or to just possibly recap, if you will, to remind yourself of certain things before I release that video. Thank you so much for watching, and also thank you for your continued support, and I will endeavour to keep up with this for as long as I'm able, because I really did feel quite guilty not being able to release a video for what, to me anyway, felt like a long time prior to this. But thank you so much for watching, take care of yourselves, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!